Good evening and welcome to Ignite News on 6 at 6. It's Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. I'm Rihanna Nikram. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 5 judges were sworn in today to the Court of Appeal to help fill vacancies and reduce the backlog of cases in the judicial system. The United States has reaffirmed its unwavering support for Guyana's sovereignty and is urging investors to ignore Venezuela's saber-rattling. Gerald Gavaya Jr. is the new chairman of the Private Sector Commission. And Senior Minister Dr. Ashni Singh says that job creation and investment extend across all regions of Guyana. 5 judges were sworn in today to the Court of Appeal to help fill vacancies and reduce the backlog of cases in the judicial system. Justice Joanne Barlow, Justice Navindra Singh, Justice Nareshwar Harnanan, Justice Priya Sunarayan Bihari, and Mrs. Joycelyn Kai Thomas received their credentials from President Dr. Irfan Ali during a ceremony at the Office of the President. 2 other judges who have been named to the court will be appointed at a later date. President Ali told a gathering of the judicial officials and invited guests that appointments mark a significant step in strengthening the justice system and reinforcing the country's legal institutions.
Their elevation comes at a time when the demand for efficient and expeditious appellate review is greater than ever. The efficacy of any legal system is closely tied to the timeliness with which it dispenses justice. In this regard, the expansion of the complement of the appellate judges is both timely and necessary. It will facilitate more efficient management of the appellate caseload and allow for a speedier resolution of matters, thereby enhancing public confidence in the judicial process.
The President urged that the move to the Court of Appeal bench represents a recognition of one's competence, character, and the fidelity with which they have served the law. It is one of the highest honors that could be conferred on a member of the legal profession.
However, with such distinction comes a heightened responsibility, one that demands the utmost diligence, impartiality, and fidelity to the Constitution and laws of the Republic. As justices of appeal, will be called upon to be arbiters in many matters of legal significance. Your pronouncements will shape jurisprudence, guide future adjudication, and influence the manner in which justice is experienced and upheld in our Republic.
The newly appointed judges are expected to exemplify the highest standards of judicial decorum and ethical behavior. Attorney General Anil Nandlal, at another forum, has said that the state is seeking to appoint as many as 11 judges to the Court of Appeal. The court initially required 5 judges, which was inadequate to manage the backlog. The 11 sitting members can now be accommodated following recent amendments to the Court of Appeal Act. Previously, the Court of Appeal only sat at its Kingston location, where the required 3 judges presided over matters. The state is now seeking to increase the Court of Appeal judges to facilitate 3 quorums, which could be held simultaneously across the 3 counties. The United States continues to fully support Guyana's sovereignty and territorial integrity and is urging investors not to be deterred by Venezuela's saber-rattling. This is according to U.S. Ambassador Nicole Terro. Speaking at the 33rd Annual General Meeting of the Private Sector Commission, PSC, yesterday, Terro made clear that the U.S. remains Guyana's strongest economic partner and will not waver in its support.
Our stance has remained exactly the same since this controversy resurfaced. Maduro's rhetoric is inflammatory and unacceptable. But at the end of the day, it is just bluster aimed at shoring up domestic support. It should not affect Guyana's investment climate or readiness to do business. And that is exactly what I and Daniel and our entire team tell every U.S. investor that comes to Guyana or that's interested in doing business here. We fully support the ICJ's provisional measures for Venezuela to halt its so-called elections in the Essequibo on May 25th, and we're extremely unhappy that they made that ill-advised decision to go ahead and move forward. You will be seeing a very strongly worded tweet coming out of the State Department very soon on that issue, and it will make extremely clear to you where the U.S. stands. Everyone should see this sham for what it is. It's saber rattling from the Maduro regime, nothing more. And no amount of bluster or saber rattling changes the fact that the United States will always stand shoulder to shoulder with Guyana in support of its sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Terrell also praised the PSC for its role in national development and the growing U.S.-Guyana economic relationship, calling the partnership rooted in shared democratic values, mutual respect, and a common vision for a secure, prosperous, and democratic Guyana. She pointed out that the U.S. remains Guyana's largest trade and investment partner, with thousands of American firms engaged locally across sectors ranging from energy and agriculture to education and security. Minister of Home Affairs Robeson Ben is again calling for greater diversity in Guyana's security forces, highlighting the importance of representation and inclusion in law enforcement. Speaking on Day 2 of the 2025 National Tushaus Conference, Minister Ben pointed to the recent recruitment of Indigenous men and women into the police service as a major step toward more community-based, empathetic policing. He told leaders that having officers from the communities they serve is essential for building trust and delivering effective security. Understanding and representing the community served, he said, is key to national unity and public safety. Ben also reported progress in expanding community policing groups in the hinterland and emphasized the role of technology and intelligence in protecting remote regions. He highlighted new efforts to equip inferior communities with firefighting and emergency response tools, and outlined initiatives supporting victims of violence, especially in areas impacted by substance abuse and isolation. On the economic front, the minister reaffirmed the government's commitment to sustainable livelihoods through micro-industries, education, and job training. He also announced plans for a new training center to help prepare youth for work in emerging sectors. A team at the conference is also helping Tushaus apply for shotgun licenses, aimed at protecting crops and livestock, and improving food security. Minister Ben closed by stressing that development and security must go hand in hand, calling on all stakeholders to work together to build safer, stronger communities. Stay tuned. There will be more Ignite news after this break.
We're for the brave, for tenacity. Here's to the up and at 'em types. We're for the crafters, the drafters, and the ones who clean up after. Here's to the dream makers and the risk takers, because we know what it takes. From mobility to high-speed internet to technology that makes it easy for your business. We're for brave, we're for business, and we're in this together. Bravo.
Welcome back to Ignite News. New Chairman of the Private Sector Commission, PSC, Gerald Gavai Jr., has his sights set on continued development of the Commission's partnerships, as well as the provision of necessary support to grow the country's small, medium, and micro enterprises. The 38-year-old director of Roraima Airways Limited was yesterday appointed chairman of the PSC, with Georgian Chamber of Commerce and Industry President, Mrs. Scotty Smith, being appointed vice chairman. Smith is the first woman to hold the post. Gavai told Ignite News that he has served the PSC for over 10 years and previously held the post of vice chair. Now honored to be the Commission's chairman, Gavai said he's very proud to be part of the youngest private sector executive team to be sworn in over 2 decades.
With this young and dynamic team, I think we're perfectly fitted for where Guyana is, not only in this amazing economic boom, but also in the fact that Guyana is becoming a regional leader and an internationally recognized country. So this is an exciting time. So one of the things that I'm very passionate about is continuing to build the relationships that the previous chairmen have done, with the US, with Canada, with the UK, countries like India and China, and even with the UAE, as well as our CARICOM brothers and sisters, reaching out to the different business communities and continuing the work that we are doing to promote Guyana as a regional hub of excellence and promoting Guyana on the international spheres.
The new chairman is keen on ensuring the participation of micro, small, and medium-sized businesses in accessing the country's growing economic success.
This is something I'm very passionate about, is building local capacity, building the local content, and making sure that we give the opportunities to the small, medium, and micro businesses. It's something that I know that the government has been working very, very hard on, and I think that the private sector has some amazing avenues for this to help. For example, in the Private Sector Commission, we do have a business help desk, that is manned every day, every working day, and we're there to help people develop their business plans, develop their financial feasibility studies so they can get loans from the bank. I know that we're heavily involved in the illicit trade prevention and mitigation, where we have an illicit trades desk that we are manning and working closely with the authorities to really promote and ensure that Guyanese businesses are given a fair shot.
An aviator by trade, Gavai brings military experience from the Canadian Force to the fore. He has played a key role in the aviation industry, conducting many humanitarian flights, particularly in the hinterland regions. He has worked with Chamber of Commerce, Aircraft Owners Association, and the Tourism and Hospitality Association. Attorney General Anil Nandlal has defended the actions of the Guyana Police Force in detaining 25-year-old Dion Jeffrey, a contractor from Parfait Harmony, West Bank Demerara, who was wrongfully held in a connection with the alleged abduction of 11-year-old Adriana Young. Speaking on the regional podcast Caribbean Tea on Monday, Nandlal said police acted reasonably based on the information they initially received through the 911 system. According to the report, Young, who was reportedly missing from the Doubleday Hotel in Tushan, East Bank, Essequibo, on April 23rd, had allegedly left the hotel in a red Ram.
When you go back to the time when the phone call would have been received and try to fix yourself in the events as they were unfolding, the police, I believe, acted reasonably when they sought to act upon that information.
The AG said that the force received information providing a description of the vehicle used in alleged abduction, as well as the driver. This caused the police to apprehend Jeffrey, who he said was released hours later when his detention bore no fruit.
Frankly speaking, I don't know that the police could have acted in any other manner. They had to take that information on board. They had to interrogate that information. And apparently when it didn't yield any further results, they obviously abandoned it. But I don't think that the police acted unreasonable there at all.
The AG is the only named defendant in the civil suit now brought against the state. Jeffrey is seeking $100 million compensation for the wrongful arrest, which he said caused him public humiliation and caused people to refuse to do business with him. The Guyana Police Force had blamed a civilian staff member and a sergeant from the Special Constabulary for the wrong information. They said in a statement that the civilian staffer entered wrong data when examining camera footage around the Doubleday Hotel, and stated that someone resembling the missing girl had left the hotel premises. The sergeant was accused of falsely claiming to have received information from an anonymous mail caller while on duty in the region's operation room, which also said that Adrian had left the hotel in a Ram. It was later determined after checks were made that the special constable was acquainted with the mail caller. Both the police rank and civilian were sent on administrative leave after the girl's dead body had turned up in the Doubleday swimming pool hours after she went missing. An investigation was also launched into their actions. Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance and public service, Dr. Ashni Singh, has reaffirmed the government's commitment to nationwide economic development, emphasizing that job creation and investment extend across all regions of Guyana. Speaking at the 33rd Annual General Meeting of the Private Sector Commission held at the Guyana Marriott Hotel on Tuesday, Dr. Singh stressed the administration's work throughout the country, including in the mining tongue of Linden.
The investments in infrastructure, for example, expanding the Quarantine Highway, working with the Surinamis to build out the bridge across the Quarantine River, working with the private sector, even in sectors like ICT, the build out of the call center shells, both of which in Berbice are now populated. All of those generate economic activity. If you look at Linden, there's been a resurgence in Linden because of the work that we've been doing with the bauxite company. Last year, we exceeded 1 million tons of bauxite for the first time in a long time, and we're well on our way to achieving 4 million tons of bauxite in a year as a result of us encouraging the bauxite company to expand their investments. They've invested in a new kiln. They've invested in the MAZ project, metallurgical grade bauxite. So you're seeing a huge resurgence in bauxite now. If you go to Linden, you'll see, of course, the company there has invested in shipping facilities. It has invested in mine development, in equipment to move its ore, in equipment to process its ore, etc., and in particular shipping and transport arrangements. So we're very mindful of the importance of creating economic activity, creating jobs. We don't want.
U.S. Ambassador to Guyana Nicole Thoreau, who also spoke at the event, noted that the U.S. Department of Commerce now has a permanent presence at the U.S. Embassy in Georgetown, with a dedicated team working to connect American businesses with reliable Guyanese partners.
They're very, very well aware that diversifying the economy is incredibly important. And that's something that we're very happy to help with. Every day, Daniel, our foreign commercial officer, and I get calls from U.S. companies and investors who are interested in Guyana. And I'm so proud to be able to tell them, come to Guyana. You have wonderful partners to work with. You have so many opportunities. And we just have a steady stream of U.S. businesses and investors coming here.
The PSC, established in 1992, is a key umbrella body representing the country's business community. It unites major private sector organizations to advocate for policies that promote economic growth, investment, and private enterprise. Ignite News will be right back after this break.
Fuel it up and drive, super 95. Tune up. Fuel it up and drive, super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guyoil Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guyoil's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
We're back with Ignite News on 6 at 6. 2 men are now hospitalized in stable condition following a reported exchange of gunfire in Sophia on Monday night. The victims have been identified as 34-year-old Andrew Stewart from Guyhawk Park and Albert Tong, and 22-year-old Lidge Grant, a construction worker from Ayfield, Sophia. According to police, the incident happened around 9:45 p.m. near the Mercy Wing Vocational Center. Stewart was shot in the lower back, while Grant was hit in the upper back. Preliminary reports suggest the 2 men were riding separate motorcycles when they were approached by 2 suspects on another bike. The suspects, dressed in dark clothing and face masks, allegedly opened fire. Stewart and Grant jumped off their bikes and took cover behind the truck as the suspects fled. Public-spirited citizens rushed them to the hospital, where they were treated and admitted. Police arrived shortly after, recovering 15 suspected 9mm spent shells and reviewing CCTV footage showing the exchange of gunfire. Both men were swabbed for gunpowder residue. The suspects remain at large, and investigations are ongoing. More than $14 billion has been disbursed to Amerindian communities over the last 3 years through the Carbon Credit Initiative, with continued support set for 2025. This funding is part of Guyana's agreement with Hess Corporation, which involves the purchases of 30% of the country's forest carbon over a 10-year period. Vice President Dr. Barajagdio said Amerindian villages have been benefiting significantly under the government's upgraded low-carbon development strategy, 2030, which dedicates 15% of all revenues earned under the mechanism toward enhancing Amerindian livelihoods. Speaking on Day 2 of the National Two Shelves Conference at the Artichon Conference Center, he reported that some 3,000 projects are currently being implemented simultaneously in over 200 villages nationwide.
We're moving forward on land titling programs. In these years, we have spent over nearly $500 million on 1,294 hinterland students who have come out now. We're supporting them here. We're spending $13 million US on the Makamaka and the Kumu Fall that would be servicing that is hydropower for the people in these communities in Region 9. We are also building these solar farms to the tune of maybe $15 million US across several villages in the hinterland. When you start adding up all of these things, then you see the size of the investments we're making. The Amerindian Development Fund, that is $16 billion have been spent in the last few years.
Dr. Jagdeo also addressed what he described as misleading rhetoric from critics who claim the government is flush with oil money. He clarified that while Guyana earns income from its oil and gas industry, that revenue accounts for only 37% of the national budget. The remainder is primarily allocated to critical sectors such as education, health, roads, and bridges, which together receive more funding than the total oil revenue. Amerindian leaders were also informed that the PPC administration has fulfilled all of its commitments made to the First People in its 2015 to 2020 manifesto. He further informed leaders that the government may consider establishing its own airline through the Guyana Defense Force to address exploitative freight costs in interior regions. A 28-year-old man from Maiconi, East Coast Demerara, has died following a fatal accident last night on the Beehive Public Road. Dindial Rantidio was driving a car with one passenger when he attempted to overtake a vehicle with its hazard lights on, due to a horse crossing the road. Rantidio collided head-on with another car heading in the opposite direction. The second vehicle, driven by a 32-year-old man from Mahaica, had 4 occupants. All involved were injured and taken to nearby hospitals for treatment. Rantidio, found unconscious by public-spirited citizens, was rushed to the Georgetown Public Hospital, but was pronounced dead on arrival. The other injured individuals were treated at the Maiconi Public Hospital. Police arrived shortly after the crash. The driver of the second vehicle was tested for alcohol with a negative result. Both vehicles are under inspection and a notice of intended prosecution has been issued. The investigation is ongoing. Stay with us. More Ignite News after these messages. You're watching Ignite News on 6 at 6. Prime Minister Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips has announced an $885 million government investment to retrofit solar power systems in 21 Amerindian villages across regions 1, 2, 4, 7, and 9. The initiative, which has been approved by Cabinet, will benefit about 12,700 residents and aligns with the government's push for sustainable development and expanding clean energy in remote areas. At the National Two Shouts Council conference, Prime Minister Phillips stressed the importance of bridging energy and digital caps in these communities. He cited Region's 9 generation capacity of 5.2 megawatts, but noted only 2 megawatts are currently in use, highlighting growth potential in sectors like agro-processing and micro-enterprise, especially in mango and cashew production. The Guyana Energy Agency, GEA, National Data Management Authority, NDMA, and ICC Access for Hinterland Poor and Remote Communities project also provided updates on the progress of related projects. The GEA reported installation of 37,230 solar host systems over the past 5 years, and the operation of 55 solar mini-grids providing over 2.15 megawatts to power essential services. Notable solar farms include 1.5 megawatts in Bartica, 0.65 megawatts in Madhya, and 1 megawatt in Latem. Hydropower projects in Makamaka and Kumu also support Region 9. The NDMA added that 228 out of the 253 targeted hinterland communities are now connected to high-speed internet, with the remaining 25 set to be connected by August 2025 using solar-powered systems. Internationally, Canada is in early talks with the United States about joining the proposed Golden Dome missile defense system, part of a wider effort to modernize North American security. The $25 billion plan unveiled yesterday by the U.S. President Donald Trump is designed to counter high-level aerial threats and upgrade defense infrastructure across the continent.
The Golden Dome missile defense shield, that's something we want. And Ronald Reagan wanted it many years ago, but they didn't have the technology. But it's something we're going to have. We're going to have it at the highest level I want to thank Secretary Hegseth, who's been fantastic, and Secretary Rubio and Space Force Vice Chief of Space Operations, General Mike Gutlein. I also want to recognize Senators Dan Sullivan, Kevin Cramer, and Jim Banks, fantastic senators, great talents, great political talents, and people that love our country. In the campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also.
Prime Minister Mark Carney's office confirmed discussions are underway, though details around Canada's role or financial contribution remain unclear. A spokesperson for Carney said the talks are part of broader negotiations to redefine Canada's security and economic partnership with the U.S., including strengthening the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, and exploring new defense initiatives. Canada's interest comes amid recent tensions with Trump, who floated new tariffs and even suggested Canada would benefit from becoming a U.S. state. Remarks that sparked a surge of national pride and, some say, helped deliver Carney's historic election win. Finally, in sports, England fast bowler Jofra Archer has been ruled out of the one-day international series against the West Indies due to a right thumb injury. He picked up the injury while playing for Rajasthan Royals in the Indian Premier League. He'll be reassessed over the next 2 weeks. Archer had already been left out of the 2020 squad to play for England Lions against India A. Those matches begin on 30th of May, so he's expected to miss at least the first game, his potential return to red ball cricket after 4 years. Persistent back and elbow injuries have kept the 30-year-old out of Test action since 2021. Lancashire seamer Luke Wood replaces Archer in the one-day squad. Wood has played 2 ODIs without taking a wicket, but has 8 wickets and 5 T20s. This series marked Harry Brooks' debut as England's one-day captain and could impact direct qualification for the 2027 World Cup. England and West Indies currently sit 8th and 9th in the world rankings. West Ham United and Nottingham Forest have been both charged by the Football Association for failing to control their players during the final moments of the Premier League clash on Sunday. Nottingham Forest claimed a 2-1 win at the London Stadium, keeping their hopes of qualifying for the Union of European Football Association's Champions League alive. But things turned chaotic in the 103rd minute. A mass confrontation broke out, leading to yellow cards for West Ham players Edson Alvarez and Carlos Soler, along with Forest defenders Murillo and Morato. In a statement, the Football Association said both clubs failed to control their players during the late altercation. They have until Friday, the 23rd of May, to respond. Meanwhile, West Ham will face Ipswich Town in the final round. Nottingham Forest must beat Chelsea and hope for help from other results to reach next season's Champions League. And that's all for this edition of Ignite News on 6 at 6. For more stories, visit ignitenews.com or follow us on social media. Thanks for watching. I'm Rihanna Nikram. See you tomorrow for more Ignite News.